Buenas tardes, everybody. My name is Carl White, and as Jacqueline said, I'm the director of, how do you pronounce this? Since this is about variation, we'll see. Corel, Coral, Corral, we're in Texas. Or you pronounce it like my first name, Carl. I don't know. So, yeah, I was trying to be very clever with this acronym. It stands for the Center for Open Educational Resources and Language Learning. And if you take a look at our website, here's our cool logo. I'm not sure what the logo is all about, but it's cool. I like it. And you notice that the OER, it's an acronym within an acronym. OER stands for Open Educational Resources, and that's really the focus of Coral. What we're doing today is part of creating an open educational resource that is open to anybody who wants to use it. No passwords, no fees. It's all free.
Good.
So, yay! Now I tell this to people and they don't believe. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that we've been producing for language teachers. And I keep saying, and it's free, and it's free, and it's free, and they don't believe. But then this is what I've learned to tell them, and then they think, oh, okay, I believe you now. This has already been paid. You've already paid for this, basically, because this is taxpayer money at work.
Oh.
Yeah. So, in other words, Coral is a congressionally funded foreign language resource center, a national foreign language resource center. There are 15 of them around the country, and let me show you on the website. Here is the Lrc Map. In 1990, the U.S. Congress established something called Title VI for international education, and it started to fund these language resource centers. And you see they're all over the country, but for many, many years, the red states, or the middle part of the country, had nothing. We finally are very happy that 2 years ago we won a grant, and now we have Coral here in the middle of the country, serving Texas and really we have a large chunk of the territory. But the LRCs are also part of the national resource centers, which are focused on improving area studies. So think of Mexican American studies or European studies, those kinds of programs. And there are hundreds of these centers all around the country. We are the only center, though, of the NRCs and the LRCs focused on open education. So let me ask you a question. How many of you have ever heard of open education? I see one hand, I see two hands. Okay, well that's about what, we have a small percentage. Open education, I can't exactly say is taking education by storm if only two hands go up. But it is growing. It's a movement, and you're going to hear more and more about it, and you'll read something about it in the news and think, oh, I heard it first during Spanish in Texas workshop, and yes, this is. So open education is basically a set of, I guess, of beliefs, of values shared widely by educators that education should be open for everybody. And I want to, I guess, juxtapose real quickly the idea of an open textbook with a non-open textbook or a commercial textbook to make this more understandable. You guys know what textbooks are, right? Textbooks are published by commercial publishers for profit. Nothing wrong with profit, but you've also heard that we're in an economic crisis right now. And it's hitting hard on all kinds of educational institutions, particularly public institutions. Textbooks are really expensive.
Yes.
At the University of Texas, you can spend $1,000 in a semester on textbooks, and it breaks the bank, particularly for students who are coming from moderate or low-income families. It's simply, not only is tuition skyrocketed, but materials have skyrocketed too. So what we're focused on is producing materials that are open and free, and the important point, they're shareable. Commercial publishers, because they have to make profit, they're interested, they have copyright, which means all rights reserved. Okay? Open materials are the opposite. In other words, we want you to play the game along with us, which is why we've all invited all of you to give us your feedback so that we can build materials that are shareable among this community and that you can keep on sharing and sharing and sharing. Now we'll make that a little bit more concrete later on this afternoon. We'll show you a couple of concrete examples of what I mean. In other words, everybody has taken a copyrighted material and looked around surreptitiously making copies and passed it out, and you have violated copyright. Okay? Every teacher does that. Everybody does that. Every teacher also takes a textbook and immediately starts to complain about it because it's problematic, because it's written for a national audience, and it's not locally adapted. It's not perfect for your classroom. That's your job as a teacher to figure out how to adapt it. With open materials, though, we give you license to change it, to go in actually and change the textbook. Imagine if you had a textbook that you could magically go in and change an activity because you didn't like it. Or you liked it, but it was a little too long. Or you just wanted to get rid of a chapter. You can do that with open materials. Okay? All right, so that's what we're really all about. That's what Coral's about. But we even have a mission statement here. Ooh. As I said, we're funded by the federal government, and so those bullet points there are part of our agenda. We are tasked to undertake applied linguistic research. And this is important in that we want to focus our materials on research. Textbook companies, again, not to bash textbook companies, to bash textbook companies a little bit. They're focused on adoption. And adoption, even though textbooks are written for students, they're really focused on the adopters. So they're interested not in the end users, they're interested mainly in professors or teachers or adoption, whoever is adopting it, sometimes state agencies. I want you all to know that Texas 2 years ago did something, I don't know how it happened, but sometimes something good happens in the legislature. And this was a great thing. The Texas legislature actually opened up school districts to OERs, Open Educational Resources. In other words, you can tell your administrators that any of the materials I'm about to show you can be adopted by your independent school districts. And they're free. And if these administrators aren't really listening to you, tell them they're free and give them our telephone number, I'll talk to them. So applied linguistic research, in other words, if you're going to do, if you think about like software companies, they spend a lot of money in research and development on end users. So imagine if we were like a software company and we were producing textbooks that had actually been tested on end users. They would look quite different than what they are today. So we're interested in research, in producing teaching materials and language assessment tools, looking at levels of proficiency or language dominance, teacher development, what we're doing here today. Very important, less commonly taught languages. Spanish is not a less commonly taught language in this country. However, the varieties that we're talking about are. A K through 12 initiatives and outreach and dissemination. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you lots of materials that you can go and hopefully pass them to other people and get the word out about Coral. So real quickly, let me show you. We have several projects besides the Spanish in Texas, which is a terrific project because it embodies so many elements of open education. It is highly collaborative. It aims at producing materials that are easy to share for the community. So we have less commonly taught materials in Hindi, Arabic, Chinese, Yoruba, national language of Nigeria. Language tools, annotation tools that you can have a classroom of people reading and commenting on a text at the same time. An archive of photos that you can upload and people can comment on. Bilingual dictionaries. Corpora, we have it in the plural because we hope to have many. This is our first Spanish corpus, which we'll have a look at in just a minute. And then I mentioned assessment tools for bilingual assessment to see the levels of dominance in bilingualism, and then proficiency training, which is in Spanish, which is a great site I want to show you in just a minute. And finally, our professional development. We actually have an online course for language teachers that you can get credit for. So let me just show you, though, under materials, we have language materials in all these different languages. not just Spanish, but if you really want to brush up on your Malayalam or your Yoruba, so yes, you're not interested in that, I know. So you're interested in, let's just see what we have here in Spanish. Spanish in Texas, number one. Okay, Spanish civilization, Onda Latina, great collection here. It comes through Longhorn Radio Network. Spanish grammar exercises, cultural interviews. These are all video interviews with Latin American Spanish executives. Spanish proficiency training website. Let me just show you that real quickly. So this is a website full of, this is another kind of proficiency, a continuum, rather, the continuum of proficiency. So from absolute beginners to heritage speakers. Everybody learning a second language at various levels. And it leads you through, I've been on this website for a while. So here we have beginner, intermediate, advanced.
Pues, siguiendo eso, cuéntame un poco de tu familia. Mi familia es...
Okay, you can enough. That's enough of that. So, right, and it leads you through a series of activities. What's the grammar, vocabulary, interactional patterns, and at the end, of course, you're trying to guess the level of the speaker, right? What level of proficiency is the speaker? So it's really a website for language teachers to promote the idea of proficiency and to train them in proficiency. But it's also being used in classrooms because it turns out that students are really interested in listening to each other. And it's great for zeroing in on their various errors. Okay, so this is a huge, huge website. You can, I believe there are over 40 different speakers now. Again, in this array from beginner to advanced. Okay, and finally, let me show you one other. Whoa, no, not this one. This has turned out to be a very, this is by Professor Orlando Kiln, who's produced many of our materials in Spanish and also in Portuguese. And again, it's arrayed in proficiency levels, so from beginning to superior. So let's see, what would you like to see? I know, your first airplane ride. That's nice. So one of the nice things about this is it poses the same question to a series of speakers. The speakers are from around the Spanish-speaking world. So, and you can compare, of course, their accents.
La primera vez que me subí a un avión, exactamente en una avioneta, fue para cruzar a la isla de Cozumel. Había muchas bolsas de aire por lo que se movía todo el tiempo. Era un poco incómodo porque para hacer la primera experiencia, pues... La primera vez que me subí a un avión fue exactamente en una avioneta, fue para cruzar a la isla de Cozumel.
There are, again, 400 some different videotapes from all over the world. Tons and tons and tons of content. Let's say related vocabulary. So related vocabulary describes an airplane ride. Related phrases for the task. And since this is, I guess, a narrative, we're going to have to pick for the rest of the. So again, it's easy to use. Right now, a lot of these materials that have been built, we're trying to repurpose them and come up and make them more shareable so that you can create lessons around these materials and then share them with other teachers, post them, and then people can keep on working on them. So that's basically what we do at Coral. We create materials for language learners and language teachers. And how do I do my time? I'm way over? Okay, I'm way over, so thank you very much. Okay, now, yeah. She's the one I really want speaking of this. Rachel. So I'll introduce Rachel. Rachel Gill is not only the project manager for the Spanish for Texas project, but she's also I don't know, a technical guru. She does a lot for Coral. And she has a background in instructional design, well, informational design. She has a master's degree in information structure. So take it away, Rachel.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm going to kind of build a little bit on what Carl was talking about, show you kind of in practice what open education looks like for this project, and sort of what our long-term goals are for the project and how we see you being involved. So you've probably seen this website. This is the site where we're putting up the video samples. We have a few little features here. It's just getting started. You know, this is just the second year of the project. So mostly what we've been focused on is the data collection. But just to give you a little preview of what's coming, our focus is building this site, which is the actual Corpus site. So this is where we are working on posting all of the full-length video interviews with everyone from across Texas. So our first group of students went out into their communities last summer and started collecting interviews. So everything you see here was collected last summer. If you go into one, you'll see this is the full video you can watch. We've started to go through and make selections for clips that might be interesting or useful for pedagogical purposes. There's also the entire full-length transcript here. And so we envision this site being especially useful for researchers, but also for educators. But it really is just, we're going to dump all of our data out there. So this is truly open data for open research. And that's you know, we strongly, luckily we have researchers who are excited to share their data. So we're excited about this resource. It's going to continue to grow. We've got another set of videos being collected this summer, and we're hoping to hit 100 videos by the end of the summer. Each one's about 30 to 40 minutes long. So there's a lot of content there. All fully transcribed, all captioned. So some of the things we'll be working on is improving the search interface and thinking about specifically for educators, what do educators want to search for? How are they going to be looking for content to use if they're developing materials? So right now there's just a simple keyword search, but that's going to be, you know, we'll be reworking that, so there'll be a much improved search functionality. And one thing I'm curious about, you know, this is a video corpus, so it's not like your standard text corpus. Are you all familiar with the idea of corpora? Is there anybody out there who's actually used a corpus search tool in the classroom or to support some type of classroom activity? Anyone? So there's one, Abby. Abby, you want to say how you used it, or?
You know, I've tried using this one before in some of my, like a social linguistics class, just to have students think about language variation. And that website actually sometimes doesn't work.
Well, you see, I mean, the interface it's not the most user-friendly. Most of these corpus sites are not, you know, they're really geared for researchers, right? So people who are, you know, doing these complex queries. I mean, you can do just a simple search here and see, you know, you've got a bunch of hits here, and then you can see examples. So these are examples from the corpus of where that word appears, and you can see the context. So if you're looking for, you know, how a word is used, you want to get a lot of examples, that's typically what a corpus is used for in the classroom. So we do have a graduate student working with us who couldn't be here today, Arthur Wendorf, and he's been working with us to kind of take these, you know, the kinds of features that a corpus has and enable our material to be searched in this way. And he's also been thinking about what are corpora good for in a classroom specifically, and this came from a little report that he put together for us. Sorry, it's a little hard to see, but you've got kind of two areas. You have the teacher using the corpus, or then the learner using the corpus. teacher could use a corpus just for reference, you know, if you just want to pull up a list of here's some examples, for material and syllabus design, which that's really what we're focused on. We're thinking about how can we use all this rich, authentic material to help teachers create materials very easily, you know, kind of within a system that we build. So that's really where our focus is. There's also a whole set of ideas about how learners can use corpora in language learning for reference, discovery learning. You know, that we're not really going to get into that in this project, but we do envision that some educators will want to use the corpus in that way too. So if we're focused on materials, I'm just going to go back a little bit to what Carl was talking about. What do we mean by open educational resources? If we want to use our corpus to create open educational resources, what does that mean? Well, we're talking about educational material that is free in the two meanings of free, right? We have free as in no cost, doesn't cost anything to use this. But we also have the freedom, we're giving people the freedom to remix, improve, and redistribute. So just keep that in mind that, you know, what Carl was saying about sharing. We want to make it as easy as possible to share these materials because open educational resources don't really belong to us. You know, they belong to all of us, so we all have to have the tools to be able to improve them together. And just very briefly, I don't want to get into this too much, but when we think about how, you know, how do OER really work? You know, I mean, this is great in theory. We talk about, oh, we can all share, but you know, what are the pieces that are needed in order to enable that sharing? One major component are open licenses. So again, this problem of copyright. Copyright says you can't ever copy this, it's mine, you know, all rights reserved. Open licenses give us a different model that says some rights reserved. That say, okay, I'm going to put my material out there, you're free to use it in whatever way you want. Just make sure you link back to me, you put my name on it, I want to get credit for it, and then otherwise do what you want with it. So that's one important piece. Standards are another important piece. In order for our materials to work together, there have to be standards. I mean, things like, you know, proficiency guidelines or something could be an example of a standard because you have to know, you know, what materials go with what level. You know, there's lots of different types of standards, but that's another important piece. Technology, obviously we have to have the technology to, you know, physically share our materials, and it's a really exciting time for that because, of course, social media, I mean, they're begging you to share. Please share everything you have, you know, so we have a lot of things with YouTube, with Facebook. I mean, there's so many tools out there for sharing, and there's beginning to be, I think, more and more tools specifically for sharing educational content, and that's kind of emerging. I don't think there's, you know, one place yet. That's still, there's many places, but I think more and more you're going to see sites that let you author content and share them very easily. And then, of course, communities, and that's all of us. You know, we need to have shared practices. How are we going? Shared practices for sharing, and the evaluation. You know, how do you tell if a resource is good easily? How do you find the good resources? Well, that's going to come through peer review, and there's a lot of repositories. I can point you towards a few repositories where you can go and search for resources. You can rate resources. Leave comments, so all of that is it's all part of putting together the OER ecosystem. And just to show you, let's see. So this is the Creative Commons site. This is the website I was telling you about. This is the licensing that we use. And I just want to show you one thing really quickly. I don't want to get into it too much. But if you're looking for material that you can take and use to create your own materials and make sure that you don't have any copyright issues, if you go to this site and you do the search, So you see, this website says, I want something I can modify, adapt, or build on. And then it's got all your, typical sites. And you can just do a plain Google search. You can search YouTube if you're looking specifically for YouTube videos that have this open license on them. You can choose any of these places. Images for Google Images. And this way you're totally in the clear. If you want to put something together and then publish it on another website, you don't never have to worry about copyright issues.
So one thing to say, you see the C in the circle, that stands for copyright. CC is an alternative to copyright, and that's called Creative Commons. And it allows you rights to share. So that's the main thing. And this is the Creative Commons website. And with this, it's kind of one-stop shop, and you can search the web for all kinds of free and open materials. And it bundles together photos and media and text all in one place. So if you're going to do, I don't know, a unit on a South American country, you can assemble all of this free open material right there.
Quick question. Is that an independent URL or is that a permanent URL?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that's not the URL.
I'll post this. Yeah, all of our presentation materials will be posted later. But I think if you just Google like CC search, yeah, creativecommons.org/search or something, and that's
Yeah.
Quick question.
yes.
On your on the other tab, it says Spanish Corpus. On that tab, you have the list of different videos and stuff. How do we get access to those?
Coming soon.
It's a work in progress. That's a preview.
Under construction.
I was trying.
Okay. And so just going back to Coral, so we're trying to do this across our projects is encourage educators to use the Creative Commons license and share their materials back to us. And we do have this wiki site where we started to put up, this would be a great place to go if you want to find the links to that Creative Commons search. That's this link right here to find openly licensed content. So we're trying to provide teachers with everything they need to know on how to create and publish and then share the materials that they create. Particularly the ones based on our projects, if they're related, we want to make sure that, we've got a set of videos here. Another educator has created some lesson plans that go with those videos. We want to make sure that somebody going to those videos can also find those lesson plans. So that's something we're focused on now, is making it really easy for people to submit things they've created to us. So then we're also providing the information on how to put them together so that they can be shared.
Would you look at this?
And this is just another example. This is a repository. It's the Open University in the UK. And this is a community that any teacher can join. And all the materials on here, there's lesson plans, activities that are all submitted by language teachers. They're all openly licensed. And there's other repositories out there. There's one called Merlot, one called OER Commons. But this is the first one that's really focused on language materials. So it's still, it's still pretty new, but you might find some stuff on there, and you might want to contribute some stuff on there. So that's something to check out. Okay. And this is something I wanted to show. This is kind of where I think things are going, as I mentioned about how I think there's going to be more and more places for teachers to go and easily create and share materials. This is a new site. It's by the people who do the TED Talks. I don't know if you've ever seen a TED Talk, but it's technology, education, and design. I think it's they get speakers. And anyway, so this is their sort of entry into open education and helping teachers to easily put together lessons that are based around videos. And they have a set of videos that they've produced, but they also let you create a lesson around any video that's on YouTube. So our videos are on YouTube, so I can just search for the Spanish TX YouTube site, and then I see these are all the videos that we've posted. And if I want to choose one, they have this concept of flipping a video, so I can flip this video. And then it gives me a form, so you can add a little description at the beginning of the video. You can add some questions. If you're sending this out to your students, you can add some questions for them to think about as they watch the video. Eventually, they're going to have multiple choice questions too. And then there's spaces to add additional content. So you can add links if you want, them to go somewhere else after they watch it, or it's very flexible and it's not really that structured. But it is a way to easily publish something, and then your students can actually sign up for accounts, and then they can actually go into the system and answer the questions, and so it's something. Like I said, I think we're going to see more sites like this as these ideas of open education really take off. I think that might be the last thing. So before we move on to the activity, we want to let you know about our upcoming symposium. If you're interested in what you've heard and want to know more about open education, August 9th and 10th in this room, I believe.
Yeah, right. So come back here in a month and a half and learn a lot more about open education. So hopefully we'll have more than 2 hands go up. Because we gave you a real quick tour of what it is. I think there are a lot of universities that are investing a lot of money now in trying to open up their curriculum. MIT and Harvard just struck a new deal that's going to be huge. We'll be hearing more about that. Carnegie Mellon, a lot of these tech universities are doing it. UT is slowly getting on the bandwagon, and it's trickling down to secondary education as well. So the idea is really for you to produce your own materials, with a little bit of help, so it is possible. And then to share those with other teachers who can take your materials and keep on tweaking, because everybody loves to do that. And so I want to give you freebies. That's what we do, right? One of our bullet points is outreach and dissemination. So, excuse me, but so we have a newsletter, and this is all about Spanish from Texas, as well as some of the other projects that we've got going on. And we have it bundled with a couple other goodies here. Importantly for you, all the list of Spanish materials that we have available or the URLs. Okay.
Materials. And you might come away with the impression that we're expecting you to make the materials. However, we should say that we do have somebody creating materials. We have people involved with our project who are creating materials for you to use. We have in progress a reference grammar of Spanish that would simply be online, and people can go and look at nouns, for instance, and find the description. It's a very easy sort of grammatical description of the language. That's going to be online and associated with our Spanish in Texas site. So all the examples for the grammar will come from the videos. And secondly, we have a wonderful person in the back there, Patricia Gonzalez, who is in the process now of creating materials that will go along with the video. And she's working on it now. This is obviously a slow process, and she's working on it all by herself. But we're hoping to add materials that you can use in the classroom that will be associated with the videos that we have, video clips. And so that'll be coming soon. But That said, what Rachel just said is any of those materials that eventually be posted, you can download, change, adapt. You can send your own materials back to us if you think we did a better job than we did. For instance, and we'll post yours. And we're hoping to just build. So, how do you make materials? That's the question. And where are we? We did something, right? Okay. So what we'd like to do for this afternoon session is we have a few of our videos posted on the YouTube site that Rachel just showed you. And we want you again to get into groups and with a graduate student to help you. And watch a video. The graduate student might have an idea of which one might be good for you to watch. We asked them to preview them first. So we want you to take a look at one of the videos that we've had posted. And we want you to think about it and think about how could you use this to create some type of material for your students. Okay? And we've given you on the handout, this is activity number 2, which we did the afternoon breakout where we are now. There's so many ways you can look at these videos. And so we said, think about it before you start doing anything. Brainstorm about what kind of materials you can do. You can look at these videos in terms of the content. What are these people talking about? What are the themes that they're talking about? You can create an activity around content, like holidays. You could also focus on how they're saying what they're saying. We've been talking about language variation most of the day. And focus, having your students pay attention to what people are saying is very important in order for them to pay attention to what they themselves are saying, right? So get them to focus on the form. We've already seen the mucho that came up in the El Paso exercises. You could focus on something cultural that shows up in this video. We have people who talk about, I don't know, crossing the border. We have people in these videos talking about how their children don't understand the value of family as much as they do. These are very cultural properties that an exercise or a lesson could be done with this. And finally, you can use these videos to have your students think about the people who are speaking. Right? What is their experience? How are they representing themselves, okay, through these videos? So you can recreate all kinds of materials. We're not sure what kind of materials you need. Classrooms differ. So we're hoping that out of this activity we can get an idea of what kind of materials people really are looking for. Okay? So we want you to get a little bit of a start. The graduate students will facilitate. We are going to be posting. They'll be taking notes and posting on the Google Docs as the notes are being taken. It'll automatically start posting up here. So we're already sharing. All the materials will be shared online, live, as you do it. Okay?
And you'll have 45 minutes to complete this activity.
Yeah, so take your time.